All right, so you're ready to really dig into Atomic Habits.
Yeah,
And, from what you've told me, you're looking for like the actionable stuff,
right.
not just the theory.
Exactly.
And I think based on all this material,
Yeah.
we've got a good one here.
Absolutely.
We've got this audiobook excerpt. We've got like James Clear's own story. And we've even got like his thank yous from the book.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to find some good stuff here.
It's so fascinating how he frames this whole thing like the science of habits
Mm-hmm.
with his own experience.
Yeah.
He starts the book with this crazy story about this baseball accident
Right.
and like basically having to rebuild his entire life
Yeah.
from scratch.
And it's like the perfect case study for his whole approach.
Oh.
Like his recovery itself is like
Oh,
tiny gains. It wasn't like this overnight thing. It was like these small wins
Right.
building on each other.
Exactly. And then he brings in this example from British cycling,
Okay.
which I thought was super interesting.
So basically like back in the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
they were not winning anything.
Right.
And then this new performance director comes in,
Okay.
Sir Dave Brailsford,
Okay.
and he has this super focused approach.
Okay.
It's basically 1% improvement
1% improvement.
in every single thing.
Like what kind of things are we talking about?
Literally everything.
Okay.
From like the bikes themselves
Okay.
to the rider's nutrition.
Okay.
Even like what kind of pillows they were using for better sleep.
Wow. Yeah.
Sounds kind of ridiculous, but
Yeah, but then like you add it all up
yeah.
across
Yeah.
everything and it's like huge.
It creates massive results.
Yeah, they dominated the Olympics, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like total turnaround.
Wow.
Just from understanding that these tiny changes consistently applied create huge momentum
Mhm.
over time.
That's crazy.
It is.
So it's like forget those New Year's resolutions
Well,
that you make in January and they're gone by February.
Exactly.
It's about
It's-
sustainable tweaks.
Yes, every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leads into one of his most powerful ideas, right?
Yeah.
Identity-based habits.
Identity-based habits. This is huge.
Okay. Break that down for me.
So it's not just about setting a goal, right? It's about
Mhm.
shifting your self-perception,
Okay.
aligning your actions with who you want to become.
Okay, so give me an example of what that looks like.
Okay, so instead of saying like, I want to lose weight,
Yeah.
you start thinking, I am the kind of person who makes healthy choices.
Oh, I see.
So your habits become an expression of your identity.
Interesting.
And this is reflected in Clear's work too.
Okay.
Like he's super meticulous about his systems and routines.
Okay.
He's embodying that identity in every aspect of his life.
So it's about shifting from like achieving an outcome
Right.
to building a system
Exactly.
that supports who you want to be.
Yes.
It's almost like our habits become our personal operating system.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And to build that OS, we need to understand how the habit loop works.
Okay.
And he uses some interesting examples.
Okay.
Like how cats learn to escape from puzzle boxes.
Cats escaping puzzle boxes.
Yeah, so like back in the late 1800s, this psychologist, Edward Thorndike,
Okay.
he put cats in these boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lever
Okay.
to open the door for food.
Yeah.
At first, they would just like paw around randomly.
Yeah.
But over time, they learned to associate the lever with the reward.
Right.
And they escaped faster each time.
So they were forming a habit
Exactly.
without even like knowing why it worked.
Without consciously understanding it.
Wow.
And this points to the four-stage habit loop.
Okay.
Cue,
Mhm.
craving response,
Mm-hmm.
and reward.
Okay.
The cue triggers the habit.
Right.
The craving is the desire to change your internal state.
Okay.
The response is the action itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the reward reinforces the loop.
Okay.
And this is happening constantly in our lives, often on autopilot.
Right. So we're not just mindless cats hitting levers, but understanding this loop gives us more control.
Exactly.
Okay.
So to actually change those habits,
Mm-hmm.
he lays out his 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay.
Make it obvious,
Mm-hmm.
make it attractive,
Okay.
make it easy,
Mhm.
and make it satisfying.
Okay. Let's break those down one by one.
Okay,
Make it obvious.
make it obvious.
What are some practical tips for that?
So you can think about habit stacking,
Okay.
where you link a new habit to an existing one.
Okay.
Like after I brush my teeth, I'll meditate for 2 minutes.
Right.
Or implementation intentions.
What's that?
That's where you get
That-
very specific about when and where you'll do the habit.
Got it.
So you're limited in decision fatigue.
Oh, so instead of just saying, I'm going to exercise more,
Yeah,
I'll be like, I'm going to go for a run every Tuesday and Thursday
exactly.
at 7 a.m. in the park.
Perfect.
Okay, so The more specific I am, the more likely I am to do it.
Right. The more you eliminate ambiguity, the easier it is to initiate the habit.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so then make it attractive.
Make it attractive.
That sounds harder for habits that aren't already fun.
Right, but that's where temptation bundling comes in.
Temptation bundling, okay.
So you pair something you want to do with something you need to do.
Okay.
For example, only watching your favorite show while on the treadmill,
Okay.
or listening to a great podcast while doing chores.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Right.
And that's playing on the reward system in our brains, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Dopamine, that feel-good neurotransmitter, it plays a huge role.
Okay.
When we anticipate a reward, our brain releases dopamine,
Okay.
which fuels the craving.
This is where it gets a little scary, though.
Yeah.
Like companies, especially food companies, they figured this out.
Right.
They engineer their foods to trigger those dopamine hits and keep us hooked.
It's true.
It's like we're fighting our own biology.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. But understanding it helps us make better choices.
Exactly. It empowers us.
Okay. All right. So then make it easy.
Make it easy.
This is about reducing friction, right?
Yeah, simplifying the habit itself.
Okay. I've heard of the 2-minute rule.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
The 2-minute rule is huge for this. Okay. You basically scale down any habit to something that's achievable in 2 minutes or less.
Oh, okay.
So instead of a 30-minute workout, you just focus on putting on your workout clothes.
Oh, I see.
Instead of writing a chapter, you write one sentence.
Oh, wow. So you're like tricking your brain.
But you're lowering the barrier to entry,
Yeah.
which makes a huge difference.
That's really interesting. And then you get the momentum going.
Exactly.
You just keep going.
Often. Yeah.
Okay. So what else for making it easy?
Priming your environment is key.
Okay.
So if you want to eat healthier, keep fruit visible and junk food out of sight.
Oh, okay.
These little changes make the desired behavior the easier option.
It's like you're hacking your behavior
You are.
through understanding.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's fascinating.
So then the final law,
Make it satisfying.
make it satisfying.
This is about tapping into our brain's wiring for immediate gratification.
Oh, okay.
Even small rewards can make a big difference in reinforcing a habit.
So we're talking about like habit trackers,
Yeah.
reward systems, reframing our thinking.
All of that.
Okay.
So habit trackers, whether it's marking a calendar or using an app,
Right.
it provides a visual reminder of your progress. And that sense of accomplishment is a reward in itself.
It's so simple, but it really works.
It does.
Like Jerry Seinfeld, don't break the chain.
Oh, yeah.
He would like mark an X on the calendar every day he wrote.
That's a classic example.
Yeah.
And then there are reward systems.
Okay.
It's about finding healthy rewards that align with your goals.
Okay.
So if you're trying to eat healthier, don't reward yourself with junk food.
Right.
Maybe buy yourself a new cookbook or that kitchen gadget you've been wanting.
Right. So it's about rewarding yourself in a way that reinforces
Yeah.
the identity you're trying to build. Got it. And then reframing our thinking.
Reframing is huge.
Okay. How do we do that?
So you focus on the positive feelings associated with the habit.
Okay.
If you're dreading a workout,
Yeah.
remind yourself how good you'll feel afterward.
Oh, okay.
That boost of energy and accomplishment.
So it's like focusing on the long-term rewards, even if they're delayed,
Yes.
and finding a way to make them tangible in the present.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so we've got the habit loop.
Yeah.
We've got the 4 laws.
The 4 laws.
But there's so much more.
Oh, yeah. He goes deeper
Okay.
into these advanced tactics.
Okay.
Like the idea of talent versus finding the right game.
Okay.
And the Goldilocks rule.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so before we jump into that,
Yeah.
is there anything from this first part that like really stood out to you as something you could apply?
You know, for me, it's the power of tiny gains.
Yeah.
It's so easy to overestimate what we can achieve
Right.
in a short time and underestimate what we can achieve
Yes.
with consistent small changes
Over the long term.
over the long term.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of small steps,
Yes.
let's take a short break.
Okay.
Come back for part 2,
So
where we will explore those advanced tactics
I'm excited.
and uncover even more gems from Atomic Habits.
Awesome. Welcome back.
All right, so we just covered like that foundation of Atomic Habits,
Right.
those 4 laws of behavior change.
The 4 laws.
But Kalir goes deeper, right?
If
But
you-
into like how to make those habits actually stick long term.
Yes.
So what's one area that stood out to you in
Mhm.
terms of making habits sustainable?
Well, we were just talking about making habits satisfying.
Right.
And he uses this fascinating story
Okay.
about a public health initiative in Karachi, Pakistan,
Karachi.
to illustrate this idea.
Okay, what happened in Karachi?
So they were facing this public health crisis
Okay.
due to poor sanitation, and they realized that hand washing could make a huge difference.
Okay.
But the challenge wasn't awareness. It was consistency.
Right. People knew they should be washing their hands,
And
but they
so,
weren't
yeah.
doing it enough
Right.
to make a difference.
And so they tried all these awareness campaigns.
Okay.
But the breakthrough came when they partnered with Procter & Gamble
Okay.
to supply the community with Safeguard soap,
Okay.
which was like a premium soap that
Okay.
people there wouldn't normally have access to.
I see.
It lathered well, it smelled great.
Okay.
It actually made hand washing a more enjoyable experience.
So they made the habit itself more satisfying.
Exactly.
That's so clever. Like
Yeah.
they totally changed the game.
Yeah, and the results were incredible.
What happened?
Rates of illness plummeted.
Wow.
But here's the amazing part.
Okay.
They checked back 6 years later,
Okay.
and people were still washing their hands regularly,
Wow. Even without the free soap.
even without the free soap.
So the habit stuck because it was intrinsically rewarding.
Exactly.
Wow.
Not just because of an external incentive.
That's amazing.
It is.
This reminds me of that study with monkeys and juice rewards.
Oh, yeah.
They were more motivated when the reward was unpredictable.
Right.
Sometimes big, sometimes small.
That variability kept them more engaged.
Yeah, it's like slot machines.
Exactly.
You never know what you're going to get.
It keeps us hooked.
So how do we apply that to our own lives?
Right.
How do we make those must-do habits,
Yeah.
the ones that might not have an immediate payoff,
Right.
more satisfying?
One strategy is using habit trackers,
Right.
like we talked about earlier,
Mhm.
simply marking off a day on a calendar
Right.
or moving a paperclip from one jar to another.
Yeah.
It can provide a sense of accomplishment.
It's like a visual pat on the back.
Exactly.
Okay. And then there's accountability.
Accountability is huge.
Having someone to share your goals with
Yeah.
to keep you on track.
Yeah, someone invested in your success.
That can really help.
It's incredibly motivating.
Clear even suggests creating a habit contract.
Habit contract.
Yeah, like a written agreement.
Wow.
Outlining your goals, your plan, and the consequences
That's
for
right.
not following through.
That's a high level of commitment.
It's like making the stakes feel real.
It is.
But it's not just about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It's about finding ways to actually enjoy the process.
Exactly.
All right, so we got those basic laws.
Mhm.
We're making things satisfying.
Yeah.
What else is there in terms of those advanced tactics?
Well, we briefly touched on this idea of talent versus finding the right game.
Right.
And I think it's worth digging into that a bit more.
Okay.
So he challenges this notion
Okay.
that some people are just naturally gifted and others aren't.
Yeah.
He argues that we all have different strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
And the key is finding activities that align with our natural abilities.
Right, like Michael Phelps.
Exactly.
He's built for swimming.
He is.
If he had chosen basketball, he probably wouldn't have been as successful.
Right. It's like that saying, everyone is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree,
Yeah.
it will live its whole life believing it's stupid.
Wow. I like that.
Right.
So how do you figure out what your strengths are?
It's a process of exploration and reflection.
Okay.
Pay attention to what comes easily to you,
Hmm.
what you genuinely enjoy doing,
Right.
and what you excel at.
Okay.
He also talks about the importance of feedback.
Oh, okay.
Seeking input from others can help you see your strengths more objectively.
So it's like a combination of looking inward.
Yeah.
And getting feedback from other people.
Exactly.
Okay. And then once you know your strengths,
Right.
you can start to align your habits
Yes.
with those strengths.
This leads to the Goldilocks rule.
The Goldilocks rule.
Habits stick best when they're challenging but not overwhelming.
Okay.
We need to find that sweet spot.
Right.
Not too hard, not too easy.
It's all about balance.
It is. Where we're pushing ourselves without getting discouraged.
So he suggests aiming for tasks that are about 4% beyond our current ability.
Right, about 4%.
Okay. So it's like that feeling of flow where you're totally absorbed in the activity.
Maybe you're in the zone.
Yeah, and time flies by.
Exactly.
But how do you know when you've hit that sweet spot?
It's a matter of finding that balance.
Okay.
And it often takes some experimentation.
Right.
Pay attention to how you feel
Mm-hmm.
when you're engaged in the activity.
Okay.
Are you feeling challenged and energized?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you feeling frustrated and overwhelmed?
So it's about being mindful
Yes.
of your internal state.
Exactly.
Noticing those cues
Those subtle cues,
that tell you whether you're in the zone.
whether you're in the zone or not.
Okay.
And if you find yourself constantly hitting a wall,
Yeah.
it might be a sign that you need to adjust.
Okay.
Break the task down into smaller steps.
Right.
or seek out support from someone more experienced.
That makes sense. And this whole conversation about finding the right game and hitting that Goldilocks zone, it highlights that habit formation isn't just about forcing yourself
It's not.
to do things you hate.
No, it's about finding things you enjoy
Yeah,
and that bring you fulfillment.
that's a great point.
Right.
Okay, so I think that's a good place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've explored some really powerful concepts
We have.
in this part too,
Yeah.
diving deeper into the psychology
The psychology of habit formation.
of habit formation
Yeah.
and how to make those habits stick.
How to make them stick.
All right, so in part 3, we'll delve into even more practical strategies
Sounds good.
and insights from Atomic Habits.
I'm excited.
And we'll give you a full toolbox
Awesome.
to start building those atomic habits in your own life.
Love it.
So until then, take some time to reflect
Okay.
on your own strengths, the areas where you'd like to grow.
Great idea.
We'll see you soon for the final chapter of our Atomic Habits journey. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Atomic Habits.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've covered so much.
So much.
From the habit loop to those advanced tactics for making habits stick.
Yeah.
So now I'm curious, like from all of this, what are some of the broader insights from Atomic Habits that really stayed with you?
Well, you know what's interesting is that Clear doesn't just focus on the, mechanics of habits.
Right.
He kind of zooms out
Okay.
to look at the bigger picture,
Okay.
like how our habits shape our lives and how we can use them to create lasting change.
Yeah.
And one concept that really stuck with me
Okay.
is this idea of the aggregation of marginal gains.
Oh, yeah. We touched on that earlier.
Right.
With the British cycling example.
Exactly.
There's tiny 1% improvements adding up to Olympic dominance.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, it sounds almost too simple.
I know.
But clearly it works.
It does. It's a powerful principle,
Mm-hmm.
and it applies to all areas of life.
Okay.
He uses this great analogy to illustrate this.
I'm listening.
Imagine a plane taking off from Los Angeles,
Okay.
heading to New York City.
Okay.
If the pilot adjusts the course by just a few degrees,
Mm-hmm.
it might not seem like it's a big deal at first,
Right.
but over the course of that flight,
Yeah.
that small adjustment
Yeah.
will land the plane in a completely different city,
Wow.
maybe Washington, D.C. instead of New York.
That's a great analogy.
Right.
So it's like those small changes can really have a big impact
on our trajectory over time.
Yeah, it's not about like a huge overnight transformation.
Right.
It's about those consistent
Yes.
incremental improvements.
The small stuff adds up.
That's so true. Okay, so then he talks about habits being like compound interests.
Yes, habits are like the compound interest of self-improvement.
Okay, I like that.
Just like money multiplies through compound interest,
Right.
the effects of our habits multiply
Yeah.
as we repeat them.
It's like a snowball effect. But that applies to both good and bad habits, right?
That's the thing. It applies to both.
So it can work against us
It can.
if we're not careful.
If we're constantly making those small negative choices,
Yeah.
like skipping workouts,
Procrastinating.
whatever it may be,
All those things add up
they do.
and take us further from our goals.
It's true. But the flip side is incredibly motivating.
Okay. How so?
If we're consistently making positive choices,
Okay.
like eating healthy,
Mhm.
learning a new skill,
Right.
putting in the work towards our goals,
Yeah.
those positive effects compound as well.
Okay. So it can work for us.
It absolutely can.
If we're making those good choices.
It creates massive positive change over
I
time.
love that.
It's powerful.
It's like even on those days when you feel like you're not making much progress,
right.
those small efforts are still adding up.
They are.
They're building something bigger.
In the long run.
I needed to hear that
It's
today.
a good reminder for all of us.
Okay, so to make those small efforts more sustainable,
Yeah.
he emphasizes making good habits easy
Right.
and bad habits hard.
Exactly.
We talked about this like prepping your environment,
yeah.
using commitment devices, removing temptations.
All those things.
It's about reducing friction
Yes.
for those good choices.
Make it easy on yourself.
Exactly. But it's not just about making things easier.
Right.
It's also about recognizing our progress
Yes.
and celebrating our wins,
Celebrating those wins is huge,
no matter how small.
no matter how small.
They fuel our motivation
Yeah.
and remind us that we're capable of change.
So true.
Do you have any strategies for celebrating your wins?
You know, I actually keep a success journal.
A success journal.
Yeah.
What's that? Where I write down even small achievements.
Oh, okay.
It's a great way to boost my mood
Yeah.
and remind myself how far I've come.
Oh, I like that.
Clear also suggests sharing our wins with others,
Oh, yeah.
telling our friends, family, or colleagues.
about our successes.
That can be really motivating.
That social support can be powerful.
Yeah, sometimes just saying it out loud
Right.
makes it feel more real.
It does.
Having people cheering you on
Yeah.
definitely helps.
It adds that extra layer of accountability and encouragement.
It's like you're hacking your own reward system.
We are.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
For me, it's the importance of shifting our focus from setting goals to building systems.
Building systems.
It's not about achieving a specific outcome.
Okay.
It's about becoming the kind of person who lives in alignment with their values.
I see.
It's about designing your life in a way that makes those good habits inevitable.
I love that.
Right.
So we're not just chasing some arbitrary finish line.
Right.
We're building a life we love.
Exactly.
Step by step.
Step by step.
Habit by habit.
Habit by habit.
It takes the pressure off perfection.
It does.
It's not about being flawless.
Right.
It's about making those consistent efforts, those small improvements.
The small stuff.
That add up over time.
Over time.
And we have the power to shape our lives.
We do.
Through those choices.
Through those choices.
We make each day.
Each and every day.
It's been so great diving deep into Atomic Habits with you.
It has been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there,
yes,
we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and inspiration to start building those atomic habits in your own life.
You got this.
Remember, small changes consistently applied can lead to extraordinary results.
We really can.
Keep learning.
Keep growing.
And keep striving to become the best version of yourself.
That's what it's all about.